Hey everybody, the Super Vader 400 here. It's time for another anime review, anime franchise review, and this time, this is my short review and overview of the Saint Seiya franchise, Ronin Warriors, and of course, Shurato, Legend of the Heavenly Spear. What all of these anime series have in common is that they're all animes about powerful fighters donning mystical armor for battle. And the very first series of this kind was Saint Seiya, created by Masami Kurumada, who is one of my all-time favorite mangaka artists. Saint Seiya was originally created as a manga. Then Kusami Murata later, in cooperation with Toei, later created the Saint Seiya anime. The manga is entertaining, but I do not like the manga. I do not like the artwork. It's too cartoonish like. Masami Kurumada is a better storyteller than artist. I like the anime better. The artwork is better. However, one thing I do love better about the manga is the pacing. It moves much faster than the anime. It also has less plot holes than the anime. However, one thing before I start with Saint Seiya, the one thing I actually don't like about the Saint Seiya franchise is one of the things it's praised most for, and that's its storyline. Its storyline is too complex and too convoluted to follow. The main plot is easy to follow. It's pretty much about Seiya being forced to go to Greece to train to obtain the Pegasus armor so he could find his sister. But there is I think it's the armor belongs to fighters with powerful cosmos, and the main characters of the current Saint Seiya show, are reincarnations of the original people who had these armors. And of course, several orphans were sent to Japan to train and obtain these armors. That part is what's his name, but the entire storyline is just totally difficult to follow. Luckily, I don't really watch for that. I watch Saint Seiya for the characters, the badass armor, and the and the action sequences. But the storyline is one thing I don't like. It's too convoluted. And it's too long. It's being several episodes, several hundred episodes long. I love all the characters in Saint Seiya, with my favorites being Pegasus Seiya, the female characters, Marion and Sheena, the other saints, Dragon Shinryu, probably the most popular character in Saint Seiya, who has the dragon armor, Cygnus Hyoga, the Ice Saint, who has the power of ice, and of course Phoenix Eki, who I like to call the original Vegeta, the first bad guy who was purely evil, but then transformed and over time became a good guy. And his backstory was so sympathetic in comparison to the other characters, was so tragic and sympathetic in comparison to the other characters. Then also representing the Bronze Saints, I also love Unicorn Jabu, and of course, well, he never became a saint. He battled Seiya for it in the pilot episode, and that was Cassius. Also, like, from the bad guys, the Black Saints, Pope Aquarius, with I think his name is Deathface, something like that, and Hades, the overall main antagonist of the first part of Saint Seiya. These are like my all-time favorite characters. My least favorites are Andromeda Shun. Andromeda Shun is a cool character. However, his fight scenes are like useless. He's like, believe it or not, he's actually inspiration for this character. He's like the poor man's Kurama. Kurama from Yu Yu Hakusho is much better than this character. His fight scenes just aren't good, but I do love the bond between him and Iki. I also love his heavily androgyny appearance. Next is these are the things I like about Saint Seiya. I love the action, I love the animation, and I like the music, man. The opening theme, the opening Pegasus theme, the outro theme, the second theme Soldier, and of course in the English version it was brought over here in America as Knights of the Zodiac. I first got into the Saint Seiya franchise in 2003 when it premiered on Cartoon Network Saturday Night Entertainment Block, a Super Nintendo like action block they had in the early 2000s. They had it on the early time for Saturdays before Toonami's exclusively moved to Saturday. And of course, I started reading the manga in 2009. However, I never really got a chance. I never took the time to finish reading the manga. Like I said, the only thing I like better about the manga is that it moves much faster. It moves much faster. I prefer the animes. And speaking of mangas, while I don't like the original manga, I do love the spin-off and sequel mangas, which is Saint Seiya: The Next Dimension, Saint Seiya: The Next Dimension. There's also another one. That was um oh yeah, Saint Seiya: The Next Dimension, and another one called Saint Seiya: The Next Dimension, which is actually a sequel to the original Saint Seiya series created by the creator himself, Masami Kumurata, and of course Saint Seiya Episode G, which is set 10 years before the original Saint Seiya series. I love both of these series because they're some of the first mangas I've seen in color, and while they still have the same cartoonish design as the original, this has better the artwork is much better, and like I said, it's in color. It's in color. There's two of the first mangas I've seen that are in color. I also love the more recent anime Saint Seiya Omega, which is an original an original adaptation, which is a sequel to the original Saint Seiya. Only it's not an adaptation of any of the previous books. The previous books were deemed too short to adapt, so they created their own original story, which I thought was cool. And what is in Saint Seiya? Saint Seiya. I haven't been watching a lot of Saint Seiya which is Saint Seiya Omega, because like I said Saint Seiya Omega, because like I said, the problem I have with Saint Seiya is too long and convoluted. But like I said, I do plan to rewatch this series, both of these series to give a longer in-depth review, and of course saga reviews of each series. Saint Seiya Omega Saint Seiya Omega is centered around a new character, Pegasus Koga, Leono Soma, Aquila Yuna, Dragon Ryuhu, Wolf Rudo, and Orion Eden, and Arya. These are the quote unquote new characters of the Saint Seiya series. This series also has its own manga, which I have not this series also has its own manga. This also has its own manga, which lasted for 1 volumes, which ran from March 26, 2013 to July 2013. So yeah, like I said, this was my short overview of the Saint Seiya franchise. Now it's time for the second series, Ronin Warriors, which I think is much better than Saint Seiya. This series is much shorter. Running for only 39 episodes, with I think a 6-episode OAV, 6 or 10 episode OAV miniseries coming after the series, which I've only watched a little bit of. I haven't really watched a lot of. This series is much shorter. This storyline is much easier to follow. And I think the characters in this series have cooler armor and weapons. But you got to give Saint Seiya credit for starting this This show, I saw this show in 1998. This show was created in 1989. It came here to America. It came here to America in 1992, and it ran from 1992 to 1995. It was 92 or 95, but it aired on the Sci-Fi Channel. Then Cartoon Network picked it up for its Toonami block in 98, and it aired from 98, I think, to 99 here in the United States. And I've been a huge fan of the show ever since. And thanks to the invention of the website YouTube, I got to rewatch and relive the awesomeness of this badass cartoon right here. In my opinion, it's one of the best animes, one of the best and coolest animes of all time. No complex or convoluted story, a simple story. It's simplistic up until the story itself is simplistic up until episode 13, when you learn about the armor. When you learn more about the mythical armor and how the armors were originally evil. How the armors were originally evil, and how the ancient one created the armors for specific people on Earth. This is when the story really gets good, and the finale was probably one of the best finales of an anime I've ever seen, man. Then it continues in an OAV series, which develops the characters even more. One of the only criticisms towards this series is that none of the characters really developed. In my opinion, the series wasn't really needed. I think the characters were cool as they were. The only character that really developed was the bad guys, the villains, Anubis, and a female character. I think her name was Kagura. These are the only characters who developed throughout the course of the series. Everyone else, for the most part, while they had their time in the sun, they for the most part stayed the same. And I like the characters as the same. And like I said, this was an awesome series, man. Awesome series. Disco Media is having a special release of this DVD series. Yeah, there's a review of this on my Doug8798 channel, which will be in the description. I'm on my Super Vader 400 channel. There's also one on my Doug8798 channel, but there's another one on my Super Vader 400 channel that I did back in, I think it was 2014. It was either late 2013 or early 2014. I can't remember. But yeah, like I said, awesome show, man. Awesome show. I like all the characters in the series. Ryo, Rowan, Sage, Sai, Kento, but and of course the bad guys, Anubis, Sekhmet, and Deus, and of course Kagura, the ancient one, and Talpa himself, and of course what's his name. But if I had to say my all-time, but if I had to choose a favorite, if I had to choose a couple of favorite characters, it would have to be Ryo, the ancient one, and of course Anubis, and Sage. These are probably my all-time favorite characters. Ryo is number one because when I think Ronin Warriors, he's the first Ronin Warrior that comes to mind when I think about this franchise, and all the warriors combined together to give him the ultimate Inferno armor. And like I said, Anubis, he was one of the original bad guys. He was one of the original those original villains who becomes good, a staple of what you would see in anime. One of those guys who starts off as evil but develops and becomes a bad guy. And like I said, in the original series, he goes through the most character development, and he has the coolest name and the coolest armor, in my opinion, of the bad guys. So yeah, like I said, another thing, awesome animation, especially with the remastering of the DVDs and the people remastering the footage with HD stuff, with HD, and then of course awesome music. The English version is like Power Rangers. It has a Power Rangers like thing. To Ronin Warriors, you gotta find the armor. Yeah, is what you call it. Then of course the Japanese version is all slow paced and dramatic with synth pop, with pop music. Then you have the Far Away theme, which the instrumental theme of this actually plays during the battle sequences when the warriors are transform or about to win. Then of course what's his name? So like I said, yeah, I'm gonna rewatch and give a longer, more in-depth review of this series, and I'm also gonna try to rewatch the OAV series. Sadly to say, this also has a manga but I've yet to come across the manga. I've looked all over online for it, and I've yet to come across the manga. I would love to read that someday, see what the manga adaptation of this was like. Next is Legend of the Heavenly Spears Shurato, or just Shurato, Legend of the Heavenly Spears. This show right here was the first Saint Seiya, one of the first Saint Seiya clones, and it was hugely popular in the 80s. In the 80s in Japan, in the late 80s in Japan. However, this show was never dubbed in English, so it never achieved the popularity of various other shows. But it's hugely popular in Japan, India, Brazil, and Mexico. It's pretty much a Hindu Saint Seiya. I think Legend of the Heavenly Spear Shurato is the best anime of all time. First of all, it's short, 39, I think 39 episodes, 38 or 39 episodes with a OAV miniseries, sequel miniseries afterwards. The plot is really complex but easy to follow. I like how this episode doesn't take long. This series doesn't have like 100 something episodes of simplistic story, and the series the series is the series the series is the series is the series like so yeah, like I said, I think plot wise it's probably the best, especially in the shonen genre. It's probably the best of all time. Awesome animation, awesome music. I wish it was ever dubbed in English, but it's only in Japanese. I wish it was dubbed in English so it could reach the popularity of shows like Dragon Ball Z, Naruto, and Bleach and stuff. And you can tell this show right here was the biggest inspiration of Bleach because it has a plot similar to Bleach. The main characters, the main characters of the show, who were the main characters again? What were their names? Oh yeah, the plot revolves around Shurato, main character Shurato Hodaka, and his rival Guy Fuka, Guy Kuruki, two best friends and rivals who are competing in a martial arts tournament, and they both get summoned to the mystical world of Tenkukai, and they and throughout the world, Guy becomes mysteriously evil. Tink, Shurato Hodaka gains some kind of lion's armor. Yeah, this is another armor anime like Saint Seiya and Ronin Warriors. And throughout the series, um, Shurato, Ringe, Ridge, Raiga, Hyuga, Ryoma, and Kuya and Dan fight the main antagonists of the series, the Ashura gods, and of course who Guy mysteriously joined. Like I said, this is an awesome tragic anime about two brothers, how one guy who is extremely nice just goes to this world and becomes corrupted and just becomes evil. And unlike other animes, there's no like brotherhood at the end. It ends brutally with I remember it ending brutally with Shurato savagely slaying Guy. So it's not like one of those being forced to kill Guy. It's not like one of those animes where in the end they're gonna convert him back to evil. No, he's forced to kill him. So like I said, awesome anime. It sucks it was never dubbed. Like I said, this is it for the Saint Seiya and Armor anime reviews. Alright, Doug out.